Robert Reagan back again, and I'm not about to diss anybody and try to cause some drama on a publicity stunt. Negativity doesn't work for me, and neither does positivity. I'm right there in the middle between those two, riding the fence. Anyway, this is a short story I wrote last week called Robert Reagan Ruined Writing, and I'm sure there's some of you out there that will agree with that. Okay, here it is, Robert Reagan Ruined Writing. What can I say? I love books. One night, talking to a friend on the phone back when we were in school, he tells me he found one of his mom's books. He says it's got that guy from the "I can't believe it's not butter" commercial on the cover, with some hot chick with really big tits. It sounded like trash because I was into H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. This seemed like some As the World Turns shit like my grandma used to watch. Like a true fiend, I was willing to experiment with this new dope. Asking him, so what? Asking him, so what's it about? Well, so far he says there's this guy named Brain, and he's boning all these hotties. Don't get it confused though, he says Brain is in love with all of them. With a character named Brain, the words alien bigamist came to mind. If it were to have a science fiction plot twist, what would it be? Fabio protecting his harem against evil extraterrestrials? Would he send them back to space with a whole case of that fake butter? I didn't let my imagination run away with me. No, he kidnapped me in the form of Playboy playmates, nude and covered in chains with their whips lashing out. It's easy to get sidetracked in stories when thoughts that scorching creep in. Back to the story, it all made sense when Brain turned out to be Brian. Now, I'm not dissing my boy's reading skills because I was 25 still spelling quiet with a W instead of the U. Worse than that, I was 29 still running around telling people, I specifically told you. What a dumbass. But it wasn't because I couldn't read. We all make mistakes, and I punish myself for mine. That way, when they put those mistakes under a microscope, their results will come back inconclusive. I've had a few drug tests come back this way. Guess I'm riding the fence between being positive and negative. This book was total erotic romantic garbage. Fabio didn't battle any evil space aliens. No, he just slapped bitches with his dick and said slick, sweet, buttery shit. Over the years, I've read a little bit of everything, going through that drugged out vagabond vibe with the Beat Generation. Next, I was silent, morbid, and suicidal, reading the confessional poets. Kurt Vonnegut blends science fiction elements with social satire, mixing these two chemicals to create potent literary dope. I heard about him while watching the movie Disturbing Behavior. This film served as a good plug, because I just had to have Slaughterhouse-5. Vonnegut was a great writer, but he could never be as good as Kilgore Trout. Trout was the one who actually wrote the books. Kurt Vonnegut was just a better name to put on the cover. No disrespect. The guy I'm reading now, man, I don't even know where to start. Let's just say Robert Reagan is a very disturbed individual. He's a creation of vanity publishing. He should have been an abortion in vanity publishing. But those desperate rapists took the money, and now respectable writers are plagued forever. Come up with a buzz and he'll kill it, then pick up your fumble and run with it into the wrong end zone. Basically, for $300 a pop, he could put out a book full of his grammatically incorrect sentences and logic mistakes. To get up that first $300, he had to steal an old lady's pocketbook. Robert thought he had fans. Dropping his books was like supplying dope to the fiends. So he came up with that re-up money again and again. And one of his exes asked him, why don't you just sell drugs? Well, that's simple. How can you sell drugs when you do them all yourself, then run and buy from another dealer? Hey, I know all this because he created his own Wikipedia page. and he didn't leave anything out, and I mean anything. It was more informative than his constant Twitter updates that no one followed. Like, who cares about the different shapes, colors, and smells of his bowel movements? At first, no one gave a fuck about him, period, whether he was on the rag or at the end of a sentence. He thought if people kept seeing his videos pop up, that one day they would watch them. This dummy didn't know it, but they all blocked his shit like the Kimbe Matumbo, and still kept him as a number on their friends list. How quickly things changed. See, this clown finally succeeded in one of his attempts to get attention. See, he'd written a story called Virgin Mary in the Cuckoo's Nest. Gassed up by the older writers in his workshop, Robert decides to submit this story to the New Yorker. This magazine was way out of his league, but he still got mad when they rejected his ass without a letter. So what did he do? He wrote a short story about a disturbed unknown writer submitting a story to the New Yorker called Virgin Mary in the Cuckoo's Nest. Only this story, called Shoot for Your Dreams, was about him traveling to New York to visit the New Yorker's office with a shotgun, blasting editors and publishers, even the people who designed the magazine's cover. Of course this retard submitted it with a warning that his people had their office rigged with explosives. The New Yorker is to blame, just like this vanity publishing company, for falling for this stupid publicity stunt. All he had to do was generate a little buzz off of controversy, and it completely excused the fact that he didn't have any talent. True, he ended up in a nut house. Robert was so sad. Then one of his friends called and told him to hurry up. You've got a bandwagon to push. But come back soon before they all jump back off. If only they had, maybe this epidemic of fake shit would have never popped off. Hey, it's bad when you refer to fiction as some fake shit. You just don't understand how Robert Ragan destroyed the art of writing. When he heard about the Illuminati, he did everything he could to try and get them to notice him. Robert gave Satan a shout out in almost every story. He even flashed those Illuminati hand signs on his YouTube video. When none of that worked, he wrote a novel about the Illuminati called Electric Love. If you think I ride the fence between positive and negative, then you should read his stuff. One story could be sweet and upholding women. The next could be a story like Who's Eating Who? About a young woman whose pussy gets mad when a guy eats it. If you think the premise is bad, listen to what the story itself is about. This chick's pissed off pussy at night takes control of her body, growing razor sharp teeth between her legs. This vengeful vagina forced her to sleepwalk the streets, knowing scumbags would try and take advantage of a woman in this vulnerable state. When they did, their ballpark Franks got ate with only ketchup. At the end of Who's Eating Who, this pussy standing up for women everywhere finally gets its ultimate revenge, biting its owner's boyfriend's tongue off when he tries to eat it again. Writing different kinds of stories was Robert's way of sticking his nose in every form of writing. See, Robert wanted to be literary, but then he wanted to be bizarro too. If anything in the world involved writing, well, Robert Ragan wanted in on it. He'd write your class essay and be ready to choke your teacher when he seen your paper covered in red marks. Robert wanted to punch cops in the face because he was jealous of them getting to ride around and write tickets. When you see writing in a bathroom stall, he was bored with his shitty Twitter updates. More and more people kept buying his books, looking over all his mistakes and taking his stories for what they said. People all over the country were affected by this mass hysteria. One man in Texas read one of Robert Ragan's stories and punched his wife in the face, calling her a skeezer before burning all of his kids' toys. If punches to the face sounds like a common theme, remember that every writer in the world would like to steal off on Robert Ragan. Novelists, poets, battle rappers, even singer-songwriters. Some of them put a price on his head, but low-life dope fiends sent to collect even end up feeling sorry for this guy. Robert represents writing for the mentally challenged. It was ironic when his make-believe tour bus ended up being a short bus. He calls it the bandwagon, and people just keep jumping on, even if his books are bad for their health. A pothead in Nebraska read Robert's novel, It's Over For You, and shot up his weed dealer's house after they refused to front him a nickel bag. Not all responses to his work were negative. A young woman from Nashville, Tennessee claims she can't reach an orgasm without reading one of Robert's erotic short stories. I used to think my tastes were too high to stoop to reading such garbage. But then as a shitty, cheap Christmas gift, someone gave me his second novel, Creator, and I've been hooked ever since. Creator has all kinds of weird, demented shit, including a zombie apocalypse in which the dead come back with a hunger for human flesh plus their sex drive. Robert Ragan writes so bad, I think even I can make it. Hell, if he can do it, anyone can. Thank you. That was Robert Ragan reading Robert Ragan Ruined Writing.